Good morning. We're joined this morning by best-selling author of The World Without Us, Alan Wiseman, to talk about his new book called Countdown. Alan, thank you so much for coming in this morning.
Good morning. My pleasure.
Well, let's talk about, first of all, I think it's really interesting how you researched this book. You did a bit of traveling before you wrote this. Is that right?
I had to. I mean, to try to figure out how many people can safely exist on this planet without destabilizing our ecosystem. Even the first thing that jumps to people's mind is, oh, well, does this mean that we have to think about a one-child policy if there are too many of us on the planet? Nobody likes that, including the Chinese who invented it. So I went to a lot of countries. I mean, I started in Israel and Palestine, ultimately 21 countries. I ended in Iran. And just to see if there's anything in the histories or the liturgies or the present circumstances of a wide swath of the world's cultures that would accept the idea of perhaps having to limit our population in a time of need. I mean, that was in the Bible. You know, after we were fruitful and multiply with polygamous Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob to build a mighty nation, we entered a time of scarcity, and Joseph realized, you know, something is going to have to be done here. So he had just one wife and two kids, and he counseled the Pharaoh of Egypt and the Israelites to do the same. And it was a time to conserve. So.
And now, of course, we're talking about the population and how it's connected to climate change and the planet as a whole. So with that in mind, you were talking about a capsized population of the world. What is the population of the world that you found that the planet can support?
Well, I talked to a lot of scientists about this from very different directions. And the climate scientists and the energy specialists realistically say that we're going to have a problem replacing carbon-based energy anytime soon. We have some solar and wind technology, but it's not at a massive scale yet for the way that we demand it. So if we scale back as quickly as we can, one thing that we can do within a generation or two is start scaling back on the number of people who are doing the demanding. Just to give you a quick example, the reason we became so numerous, medical technology and food technology. Before we had nitrogen-based fertilizer, 40% of us couldn't be on this planet then. The planet just couldn't create as much plant life. And that itself takes a lot of greenhouse gases, I mean, a lot of carbon to make the stuff, and then it gives off nitrous oxide as it decays. So you knock us back by 40% of us by gradually phasing it out over a few decades, and of course it's not doing anything happy for our soils or for our water systems. We could start bringing us back to a much more sustainable population.
Sure. So, of course, the connection with climate change here is that the more people that are on the Earth, I assume, the more that's exacerbated. But you're hopeful, right? You said you have possibly a solution.
Well, it turns out that this is technology we already have, unlike coming out with zero-emission energy. Contraception is very cheap. We know how to do it. Right now, we're spending worldwide about $4 billion. If we doubled that amount per year, and that's less than the United States was spending in Iraq and Afghanistan per month, we could provide contraception to everyone on Earth, and they could choose if they wanted to use it. And it turns out that choice is really the determinant, not a government telling us what to do. And the best contraceptive of all is female education. You get a girl through high school, rich country, poor country, everywhere I went, they tend to have something important and interesting to do with their lives, and they can't do it with 7 kids hanging on their apron strings. So that's what they end up doing. So this is something, again, we already know how to do this.
Sure.
And it looks like it is a time to refrain from embracing so much, because otherwise we're going to pack so much insulation into our atmosphere. It's going to keep overheating. The sea absorbs that heat. It rises, and its chemistry changes. And that's not a good thing for our future.
Sure, sure. Well, a lot of interesting stuff. I wish we had more time to talk about everything in this great book, Countdown, again, by Alan Wiseman. And Alan has been kind enough to join us this morning because he's in town for a couple of days. You can find him at the book festival today. He's got a signing going on at 2:30 after an interview at 2:15. That's at the Texas Book Festival on Congress Avenue. And then tomorrow, Alan is going to be hanging out at Book People at 7 p.m. for an author event. So, Alan, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Really appreciate it.
Okay.